Welcome to 5 Minute Creative Flow. Get yourself unstuck. Get the creative juices flowing, and it only takes 5 minutes. On today's episode of Creative Flow, I have a repurposed book that I'm working in, and I'm using this as a sort of manifesting tool. And I'm writing I am and all sorts of wonderful things that I am. And this is just a way for me to sort of meditate and get into an unconscious state and let go of thought and just put things on paper without judgment, without any sort of expectation. It's simply putting marks on paper, grabbing supplies that are next to me, and letting the magic happen. And I'm using a crayon. I think crayons are so underrated. And when you use a crayon, it takes you back to your childhood. It's easy, it's effortless, it feels like play. So I would encourage you, go to your local thrift store and find some crayons. There are lots of crayons out there that need a new life and new love into it. And now I'm just doing a rubbing, and I've simply reached in and grabbed a crayon that didn't have a wrapper on it. So there's no process or thought process of color or theme or anything. This is not that at all. This is simply putting marks on paper. And this is a technique that I've discovered from other people who discovered this, is to use both hands, because that gets both sides of your brain, right and left brain, working. So I think this is such a great technique to sort of get those two hemispheres of your brain speaking to each other and in a creative flow. And now I'm going in with a marker, and I'm just going to start adding some color into those little spaces. And again, this is the marker I grabbed. There was no thought to it. It was just a marker. And what I think is interesting about this process is you start to see different layers and things being covered up, things being added, things being covered up again, things being added. So it really creates a depth and a complexity that I think I don't have naturally when I'm actually trying to create something good. So this is just letting it happen without thought, without conscious thought. So now I've picked up this orange and I'm just adding it to other spaces. And really, it's such a fun thing. This is also a great thing to do with children. Let them squiggle with a marker and then go in and color those spaces, or put little glitter in those spaces, or paint in those spaces. This technique is just very easy, and you can find success in squiggles, and it's really great for people who are maybe intimidated or a little bit afraid of making marks and worried about a judgment. There's no judgment here. And I've switched from a marker. Now I've moved back to a crayon, and this different mixing of media is also really stimulating for my brain. Instead of just having one thing that I'm working with, having lots of different elements gets things moving, gets ideas, gets thoughts happening for me. And this video has no cuts in it either. This is simply my process for 5-ish minutes. So there's no editing. This is raw creation happening. I've grabbed a red marker, and I think red is a great and powerful color. I think it adds a lot of life and vibrancy to anything you're doing. So if you feel like you're stuck, grab red paint, red marker, red crayons, red pencils, something, and put a little bit of color and vibrance into your work. And do something crazy like paint red grass, or paint a red ocean, or paint a red banana. Do something wacky just to get yourself out of a rut. And here I am adding some lilac acrylic paint that was just sitting next to me. And I'm just going in, I'm cutting into that work, I'm covering it up, and we're almost done. 5 minutes goes really fast. And that's another great thing about this practice is you don't even have time to think about it. Grab something, put some marks on a paper, and I'm going in with a little bit of water and that color, and I'm just blending it. And you can see the frenzy with which I'm painting. This is not sped up. This is the frenzy that is my creative moment. And I'm adding some more water, so I'm getting sort of a wash in some areas. I'm getting a heavy, thick paint in other areas, and I'm just dragging it over the whole thing. And 5 minutes is up. Wishing you creative flow.